All right, so I want to welcome everybody to a new episode of the Olé Soccer podcast. We have a special guest today, Jacob Brown. Jacob Brown has made time before his C license course today to be with us, so it's exciting to have him. We're going to get into Jacob Brown's story about how he started with the game, where he sees his game going, how important it is to work with the little ones in his club, and also the importance of having a game model from the little ages, what a game model is, what that looks like, the importance of having a foundation for players, all the way through his now coaching career for his high school and how he can actually impact players at the high school level and beyond. So I'm excited to have Jacob be part of this podcast episode with us. And welcome, Jacob. How are you?
Good to be here. I'm good. I'm good. So
Good.
excited to do this.
Great. No, I appreciate you making time again. I know you have a busy schedule, and it just so happened to work out today where you had some time in the morning to discuss, and talk a little bit soccer. No, you don't like that at all, right? You don't like talking about
Not at all. Not at all.
So we want to get into, your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I want the audience to know, get to know you, Jacob Brown, as a leader in your community, where you're from, where you coach, and a little bit about yourself and how you started. Go ahead.
I've been playing my whole life, just like any other guy. I grew up in Georgia, started soccer there, and then moved here to my current town in Cullman, Alabama. Played club, played high school my whole life, played RPL. Then went to played in college at Olé State, and then transferred to University of Mobile. While I was at Mobile, I got into a little bit of club coaching there, as well as assisting with a local high school program. When I graduated, I came back to my alma mater, which is Cullman High School, and I took over the girls program there. And I did that for about 6 years. Then I had 2 kids. So, of course, I also did we started something called Cullman Football Club in 2013, started with just 20 kids. And it was an affiliate of Birmingham United. I have a couple of friends over there that allowed us to run it through them, and it's kind of grown into what it is today. But I've been around the game my whole life. I think it's the best sport to challenge yourself from an intellectual perspective. So, I've been playing my whole life, played college, coached for the last 10 years. So we can kind of get into that a little bit in a second.
Yeah, good. And what position did you play?
And I played left back in high school.
Are you a lefty?
In club, I played mostly left wing and striker. So
Are you a lefty?
two different words. I'm a lefty. I'm a lefty.
Okay. And how has that made you see the game from a young age? Because I'm sure everybody wanted you on your team because you're a lefty, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody knows that lefties are, naturally better athletes. I'm not just kidding. But no, I mean, of course, growing up, the game is different now than it was, 15, 20 years ago. Everything was designed around doing it a specific way. So, of course, every activity we did was designed around right-footed players.
Yeah.
So of course, naturally, I got pretty decent with both my feet. So
Good.
Nice.
Nice. That's good. No, having lefties on your team, I'm sure you as a coach now can appreciate lefties and you can relate to them a lot now.
Oh, for sure. The little outcast.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. All right, good. No, so tell me about how you actually started in your coaching career. How did that come about? Did you know from whatever, from playing, like, hey, you know what, when I finish playing, I want to be a coach? Or how did that come about, as you start?
So I didn't go to college to be a coach. I was actually going to be in physical therapy. And I did 100 hours of observation hours and realized that I did not want to do physical therapy, and I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. And, I still played a decent amount. And the best times of my life was when I played in high school. I mean, obviously I played club, I played college, and I played high school, but the high school experiences that I had were literally, the most memorable experiences of my teenage years. So I thought that it would be really cool to go back and coach at the place where my best memories were. So naturally, after I graduated, fortunately, it kind of fell in my lap that I could coach at my alma mater immediately.
Yeah.
And I think from there, I started in high school, But for their obviously growing up in club, you know that you can't just play high school and be successful. You have to play club as well. So that uh, after that first season, I went in there in the spring, and after that first fall, I started what we call Cullman Football Club, which is not what I'm at now. And I started 2 teams. I did that for 4 years. I would just have 2 or 3 teams each year that I would coach, and we did the affiliate under Busa, and that eventually merged into what we are today. Our local community had AYSO,
Yeah.
and AYSO in Alabama is not exactly the strongest as like it would be out in California. I know it's pretty big
Yeah.
out there. Here,
Yeah.
it's just basic rec ball, just all volunteers or not much knowledge in it. So for 5 years, I pushed them to, try to merge with us and have a rec portion of the club and a club portion. And that we finally merged in 2018. And I took on the director of coaching role in 2018. And we've grown from, in 2013, I had 22 kids, and now we've got 750 kids
Wow.
this past season. So
Wow.
it's been a journey. It's been a very rapid journey. I mean, we're learning along the way. Obviously you make mistakes each year. You build on those mistakes and try to make it better each year. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what the future holds for that as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. Congratulations. That's a great story, and I'm glad you see the value in merging with the AYSO branch there,
Mhm.
so you can impact more kids. Because I think similar to what you're saying, like for me, it's important to give these kids the best start possible and to enjoy the game, right? And I
Yeah.
think the enjoyment of the game, the fun of the game, I don't think ever really leaves. But how can you really make it not only fun but educational for them, like to actually teach them things that are actually help them inside the game, right?
Yeah.
So how much of an impact have you seen in the players, and then what they're learning with the staff, and probably still, is it still volunteers with the rec program, or is it,
So
how does that work?
we're not AYSO anymore. We
Yeah,
are ASA. The rec side is volunteer,
got
but
it.
we have paid positions that, like for instance, I actually run U6 and U8. I'm like the overhead, and I train all
Got
the
it.
coaches and so on and so
Okay.
forth. So there are paid staff in it, but the actual coaches themselves on the rec side are volunteer. But it's
Got
not the same as before. It used to be you go grab a random dad and say, "Hey, coach this team."
Yeah,
Whereas now they have to follow a specific curriculum to be in our
got it. Got it. So let's dive into that a little bit. So let's say there's somebody that is interested in doing something similar to what you're doing, right, within their local community. How would they start to train? What steps would you take to train someone that has the passion to coach, but has never really had the understanding of how to set up a session, how to work with little ones this age, that are like, I think I want to start. I'm like halfway in, halfway out. How do you deal with that, from a staff's point of view?
I think the biggest thing is the only way you can do it is if you actually have a methodology that you follow.
Mm.
You have to have a vision that is explainable to a person that has never played the game before.
Got it.
And for what we did over the course of 6 months is we met with each person that was going to volunteer. We did a presentation. I did emails explaining. I built out the whole written curriculum. And then before the season, we had coaching courses to where the way we did it is like, for instance, U8. It's almost like you had 3 baskets. You had a rondo basket,
Mhm.
you had a positional play basket, and then you had a training game basket. You could have a 4th basket that is technical or whatever. In each basket, we put a minimum number of activities that you can do for that practice.
Mhm.
And we showed each activity within those baskets. For example, for the rondos, for ours, we do 4v4.
Okay.
And all we did was, if you have 4 people show up for practice, you do a 3 versus 1. If you have 5 people show up, you do a 4 versus 1, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 8 kids, showing how they do it with the random amount of kid that you may get show up. And then the positional play, we did the same thing. We gave them 3 basic activities and showed them how they are. And then, of course, training games, obviously, as you know, can be 1v1, 2v2, 3v3.
Yeah.
So the easiest way, in my opinion, to do it is you have to go over the top and to be honestly a little bit annoying in the fact that you're overloading them with information constantly
Mhm.
and never relenting. You can't just throw them a handbook in the beginning and then say, have, good luck.
Yeah.
Whereas we were there for every single week. We were there if they were struggling with an activity, to making sure that they understood the activity. We were always at the games. I went to every game and I gave my notes of what I saw that was not working correctly. I think you have to make it as elementary as possible, but also it's intellectually challenging for the kids as possible.
Mhm.
You don't want the coach to do too much. You want the game to be the best teacher. And that's what rondos and positional play is. The game is the teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I share that as well, that the way of thinking, and I believe it because I've seen it. So you doing that in your local community, you exposing your staff to that way of thinking is huge because, I think when it comes to rec programs, most just go and find something on YouTube,
Yeah.
find something on social media that you can just duplicate, but is it really the best thing for the players?
Yeah.
Right. And so how has the retention rate for the players signing up been, since you took over?
So that's one of the reasons why I think it's so successful. Before we implemented this last year,
Yeah.
where I finally went in U6 and U8 because I actually have a 5-year-old, so she was entering that, and
Oh.
I had to make sure that it was the right.
So that way you're there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So
Okay, great. Yeah.
but anyway, before that, the retention rate on the rec side was 40 to 50%. It was terrible.
Mm,
And ever since we've implemented this program, we did a survey at the end of the year, how many are coming back, and we're in signups right now. And just based on the surveys of how many are coming back, it's 90%.
wow.
So it's increased 40% based on the surveys. And as far as registration, we're still in the middle of it, but there's a lot of familiar names. And the ones who are not coming back this spring are coming back in the fall. For example, we do baseball. Baseball is pretty big here. So
Okay.
they're like, oh, we're going to do baseball in the spring, but we'll be back in the fall. To me, that counts as you still retaining the kids.
Yeah.
They want to try different things too.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's
No,
been
that's good.
the retention rate is really, really high based on our new program.
No, that's good. That's good. So it sounds like things are definitely moving in the right direction. And I give you a lot of credit for even thinking that way, and training your staff that way and having them just kind of see why. But more than anything, like you said, the key thing that stood out to me was the game's the teacher, right? The exercises that are game like are the teachers.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking about this? Who taught you this way of seeing the game this way? Was it something that you just naturally saw? Is it something you sought out? Did you have a mentor that actually taught you this? Because it's not very, I would say, American, you could say, of thinking about
Yeah.
the game. Like so how did you come to this conclusion, like the game is the best teacher through this methodology?
So I mean, I think I'll be the first to admit that when I first started out coaching, I was exactly like 95% of other coaches. I thought I
Yeah.
knew everything. And, and I think one of the worst curses you can have as a coach is having success too quick.
Mhm.
And, I had success really quick. And of course it went to my head a little bit. And I never had a mentor to teach me, the correct way to play. In Alabama, there's not a lot of places that have a methodology that they follow.
Yeah.
But I'm very competitive, and I've always wanted whatever I do to be the best or challenge to be the best. So I kind of started researching on my own. And then I came across Tova,
Mhm.
with Todd Bean.
Yeah.
And every course I'd ever been to, as far as USSF or USC or whatever, it's very, I don't know, I just didn't like it, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
it wasn't what it was what I had grown up thinking, and I grown up playing, and it was not that challenging to me. So I went over to Tova with an open mind, and those other courses you're jumping through hoops.
Mhm.
Whereas Tovo, you go and they share what they're about, and it's such a cool environment that you're around like-minded people, and it was the best experience I'd ever been through from a coaching perspective.
And
And
sorry to cut you off, Jacob. So did you go to Spain or did you go, was it online? Was it in person, a 2-day course? Because there's different ones. So which one did
yeah,
you go to?
so I followed him online for about a year or so. And it's actually funny when I first saw Todd Bean online, I was like, God, this guy has got no idea what he's doing. And I was like, I disagree with everything he's saying. And then as of course, I changed my perspective and I went out there to see for myself and I was blown away. But I went to Spain.
You went
I've actually been to Spain twice, been a T1 and T2. I went to T2 last year, T1 in 2018, right after we formed Cullman United, because I really wanted to change the way our club was. So it was definitely the best experience that I'd ever been to and the most impactful one that I've been to.
Wow, wow. So that's so interesting, and that's so amazing that you invest in yourself in that way to improve not only yourself but the players that you care about, that you serve, right? Because you sought out, you know what, I need to see things in a different way, and I need to improve myself. So my training, my club, my teams, the community that I serve improves, and that starts with leadership. That starts with you. So from there, Jacob, congratulations. And from there, you just decided, you know what, this is something that I can actually duplicate here in my local community, right?
Yeah, that and well, I think to go back, I think the biggest advice that I gave myself, or I actually my dad actually gave it to me, is that the second that you realize you're not as good as you think you are, at the most rapid growth you'll ever have. And that's what I had over there. And yeah, we took that and we implemented it on the club side first. And our club side has kind of gone through the roof from the Tovo perspective. And then last year we implemented it on the rec side for U6 and U8. U6 and U8 do look different. But U10 and up, we haven't really done it as much.
Yeah.
Focusing on the youth right now. But yeah, we basically went full on Tovo within our club. And then now the older ages we're implementing APFC as well, but it's 100% Tovo with the younger ages.
Well, that's so awesome to hear, and it's exciting to hear, because that means that these kids already learning things that are way more advanced than the majority of the kids playing in the States.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you see this a lot now, and to each their own, right? Because we only know what we know, but most are just dribbling through cones. Most are like working on the individual, and then you see a huge line. Let's say a group of 10 kids, rec kids, you get one kid just dribbling through cones, right? And then you have 9 kids waiting to do the same thing. Then they shoot in the goal, right? So you see that often, right? Or you see the 2 lines facing each other and they just pass back and forth.
Yeah.
And switch lines, right? So we see that all the time for warm-ups, for even shooting exercises. So can you share, let's just say, someone that is interested in this for U6 or U8, for a rec program. What's one of your favorite exercises besides, let's say, the 4v1 rondo, 3v1 rondo, but something that maybe they can take, from this interview that they can implement right away with their rec team? Like, what exercises, one of your go-to favorites that maybe not many people know?
I think the most rec teams have at least 6 kids at the younger ages. And if you want to get them to play in their actual shape, the correct shape, and most U8 play 4v4. What we do is something I call a 4v2 transition.
Okay.
And let's just say you have a rectangle with 2 squares within it. And the yardage can obviously, it depends on the kids that you have, but let's just say they're 8 yards wide by 8. So 16 long and 8 wide. You have a offensive player on each short side and each outside. So that's 4. That's your 4 offensive players. Okay. And then you've got 2 defenders. You can do it in different ways with the defenders. You can have 1 defender per square. You can have 2 defenders that can go back and forth. You can have something we call a lion's cage in the middle, to where they actually can't go to the offensive player after a certain number of passes. You can have the defenders dribbling a ball. They have to dribble the ball and go try to steal yours. But the design is they've got to make at least 3 passes on their side. And then they transition to the next rectangle to find, say, their striker or whatever. and they move up the field.
Yeah.
So they're keeping their diamond up and down the field and keeping their shape. One of the things that we actually did with our field is we made dotted lines
Okay.
vertically on our field. So the kids, when they play, when they win the ball, it's outside the dotted line. When they lose the ball, it's inside the dotted line. So you're teaching compactness defensively and then width offensively. So it looks like that activity. But it's definitely the best activity that shows them what we want them to see in that game.
Got it. No, thank you for sharing. That makes a lot of sense. And that's great that you can actually do that on your field. So you translate directly the training to the game. So it's fluid. It's fluid. And I think that's when I think the importance of going from short-term memory, just doing it once or twice, to actually saying, you know what, that's going into their long-term memory. And now they're just automatic as they continue to grow. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, I already know what to do. The ball goes here, I'm gonna go here on offense. The ball goes here, we lose the ball, we're gonna get compact on defense. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good. Thanks for sharing. So next thing I want to get into is like your trajectory now, moving, let's say, from the individual concepts, laying down the foundation with the Tovo way, what you're doing with the rec, and even your probably foundation phase throughout your club. Now, how are you seeing the individual improvement now that you're trying to instill your game model type structure with your U13 and up, your 11v11 teams? Or when do you guys start 11v11? Is it U13 as well?
U13, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so how has that transition been? What have you seen individually and collectively now that you have some time using this type of methodology?
So the team that I currently coach is a
Mhm.
2012 team, so they're U11.
Okay.
I actually I experimented with them, to be honest.
Okay.
And at U9, they were the first team that we went full Tovo with.
Okay.
And with Tovo, the thing is, we're all about principles rather than topics. Make like in a rondo, making sure they receive the back foot or so on and so forth. Like the small little details that
Details.
make
Yeah.
the best player.
Yeah.
So those particular details and my team versus other teams that got to our particular age level is night and day. Our little details compared to most of the teams that we play is night and day. So it is, I think the biggest change has been in how we taught those principles, to where we no longer have to say, open your hips to the field or check your shoulder or whatever. We don't have to say it because they are naturally receiving with the back foot, and it's increased the intellectual side of the game at the older ages. So it allows us to teach higher level stuff at the older ages versus constantly having to say, check your shoulder, which I hate saying or whatever. So, I mean, I've seen so many U15, U16 team coaches, constantly screaming, check your shoulder, 45-degree angle. And even at that level, whereas we're not necessarily have to do that as much because we did it at such a young age.
Yeah. That's huge, right? That's huge. And how do you, because I know you still coach high school, right? You said?
Yeah.
So how have you seen the importance? Do you start over through like the Tobo way of like instilling these principles in the beginning of the season, so that, because I know you get new crops of new set of players every year. So how do you start that to actually implement some sort of game model for the season?
So the thing about our town is I actually think it's easier to implement in high school than it is club.
Okay.
Because the way that our high school works in Alabama is you can train them 5-6 days a week. And when they're not with us, they're training through the clubs. So they come, the once you actually play club, they come with that foundational knowledge already. And I think an interesting way to explain this would be, so I used to coach at Cullman and I implemented Tovo that way. And each year we just built on it. Like it wasn't like you started over, you just went to the next step, because every kid that came to Cullman came through the club system. We never had to do it. So the new high school I'm at, they had only had a program for 5 or 6 years. They had 6 wins in 6 years. Wow. So, and 100% of the players had not even touched the soccer ball until 7th grade. Wow. So it's in a completely different environment than what I was used to.
Yeah.
So last year I went full on Tovo with them. and we went 9-7 in the first year. And we started from the foundation, just teaching them the basics and the principles. And then this year, I've thrown the the kitchen sink at them, and we're now building. I'm going and very in depth implementing APFC stuff, and the growth from going full Tovo in the first year with a group that had no soccer knowledge.
Mhm.
I would say that rapid growth is more than anything that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And when you get kids that, are complete total blank slates, they
Yeah.
tend to learn more
Yeah.
than, their predecessors or the competition or whatever.
Yeah.
So as far as the question, yeah, I mean, I think each year, I don't think we're starting over. I
Yeah.
think we're just building on what we've done previously. And I think when you have a club and high school program that are on the same page and teaching the same thing, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of
Yeah.
places, the club in high school, they're, button heads or teaching different
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
that's a big problem in America.
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge. And how's your relationship been with the surrounding maybe clubs? You said you now moved to different high school. Is that what you said?
So we have 4 high schools within our county that have a soccer team.
Got it.
I still coach at the other one. I mean, sorry, I still teach at the other one, but I coach at this new one because I took obviously there's a break in there. But as
Yeah.
far as my relationship with, you say other clubs or other high schools?
With the clubs, yeah, yeah, because you funnel them. So have you noticed that your impact in the soccer community at these grassroots ages, middle school ages, has been impacting the local soccer community in the way that they think about the game? Have you noticed that at all?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first off, our club is the only club within our county. So we
Oh,
don't have any competitors from a club. So
oh,
we're a
wow.
smaller city
Yeah,
than you say Birmingham or Huntsville. Like Birmingham and Huntsville each have like 9 clubs.
yeah.
So
So
we're
interesting. So you're basically, your club is funneling all the high school players to the
correct.
4 high schools within your county. So you're
Correct.
basically developing all the high school players, you could say.
Exactly. And
Wow.
they all have the
That's
same
so
methodology,
that's
same
so
tools.
cool.
So and I think that our growth is, I mean, it's different than us. I mean, we're small. There's some of those schools are small, but
Yeah,
the impact is bigger than you
yeah.
would see in other places.
Oh man, that's interesting. That sounds like a very rewarding job as well, because then you get to see not only the short term development, but also you get to see them grow as human beings. You get to see them grow as leaders in their community. You get to see them grow into, becoming high school athletes, what that means to represent your high school and to actually have a, pretty solid foundation. So sure, the games are pretty competitive and fun to watch as well, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, and the other thing I'll add is all 4 head coaches for those high school coach within our club.
Wow.
So we're all
A
kind
lot
of
of
on the same
bragging
page.
rights. It's a lot of bragging
Absolutely.
rights.
Absolutely. So yeah, and it's competitive. It's
Yeah,
each of our programs are improving.
yeah.
Our biggest high school won a state championship, a few years ago. They've won 2. Now the other one was a long time ago, but they did recently win a state championship. The other ones are smaller schools. Like I said, the one I just went to, it's a very new program, and I wanted to go in and kind of help build that.
Yeah.
It was fun. So
Yeah, no, that's good. And how important do you think it is for a coach, let's say with a little bit more experience in doing things at different ages, is it for them to coach beginners? If let's say, there's a lot of coaches that have a lot of experience, but they just want to coach competitive teams or just be with competitive programs. And I see this often in California, right? Okay, we're going to host a clinic. It's only for competitive players. We only want top elite players, but how important, like we talked about when we started, how important is it for coaches to humble themselves and also be like, you know what? I also, should be coaching these kids that probably need it the most rather than the kids that are already, you could say more competitive. How important is that for you?
I think that, well, there's 2 different ways to look at it. I think I think it should be required that all coaches coach at least 1 or 2 years coach a younger team at least 1 or 2 years.
Mhm.
The reason for that is, like, I started with teenagers,
Yeah.
and you base things on wins and losses when they're older, and you base success on wins and losses, and you don't necessarily pay attention to the smaller details as much. Whereas if you go to the younger ages, those smaller details are everything,
Yeah.
making sure that they open their hips or this or that. And it also gives you a different type of patience or he teaches you patience in a different way that the older ones would.
Mhm.
Because a little 7-year-old, he might come and he's eating sugar all day long. It's a different challenge that you would face at the high school level, and each kid at that age, they're developing a different way from a mental perspective, and learning that patience has at the younger ages had made me a better coach at the older ages. Seeing those little details at the younger ages had made me a better coach at the older ages, and just seeing the long-term development of a younger player has again made me better at the older ages. The other thing that I would say is there was a second thing. What was there was a second point I was going to make.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
the question again was, just to refresh memory, was like the importance of having coaches with a little bit more experience in teaching these principles, Tovo way, APFC, understanding it, how important is it for them to also be coaching the beginners, right? Or
oh yeah.
low level teams, you could say.
Well, I think that I think it should be required to coach at least 1 or 2 years. And I think the problem with USA coaches is everybody wants to start out at the highest level. And we have our best coaches, quote unquote, at those higher level teams, and our new coaches or less experienced coaches or volunteer coaches at the lowest level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem with USA is if you go to Spain, the best coaches are at the younger levels.
Mhm.
And that's where the most, I mean, like you said earlier, UA to U12, they're sponges. That's the
Yeah.
most impactful time that you can ever coach a kid. I
Yeah.
think our best coaches in USA should be at the younger levels. I'm not saying they can't coach at the higher level,
Yeah.
but they need to be contributing at the younger level as well, or we as a country are never going to advance forward. It's going to be the same rinse, cycle, repeat type thing that we've always had. So I think we need to change our perspective. And like, for instance, I'm the director of coaching, and I mostly coach U9, U10, U11, U12 on the club level, just because I want to make sure that those kids have the right foundation as they move to the older levels.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. No, I appreciate you sharing that, because I also share the same philosophy and mindset, because the better we're able to impact them at these younger ages, like we talked about, the better foundation they'll have, the better trajectory they'll have, and whoever gets them next, they're going to be like, thank you. Now let's build off of that.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. We don't have to be talking about, like you're saying, like scanning, check your shoulder. Like they're going to naturally already have that habit down.
Yes.
So that's excellent. So now, talking a little bit about, let's say we're talking about a little bit more about, generally speaking in the US, of course, every community is different, every club is different, but what do you think about the sport and where this is going compared to the world? Let's say the US soccer on the men's side, and the women's side, just generally speaking, what do we need to improve on from your perspective, to improve our ability to compete on the world stage? Where would that start for us?
I think the biggest thing, and I'm not necessarily sure how to fix it on a countrywide scale, but I can speak from an Alabama perspective.
Okay.
It's most clubs, honestly, I would say 99% of the clubs in Alabama do not have a methodology within their club. And like, for instance, at the big box clubs, you may get one coach at U12 that's going to teach you a certain way. And then you move to the next coach and he may teach you completely different. And we can't develop players like that. You've got to have a methodology that each kid, or a style of play that people grow up into, making sure that they're learning those key points of it, those principles.
Mhm.
So I think that if we were to translate that as a whole, we do need a methodology that we follow, but it needs to be dictated within each club. I know USSF is trying to say we have a certain style of play, but the way USSF is, it's you can't implement it. It's just a course that people go to, they check it off, and it's like a check mark or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no implementation at that level. So we, as the local clubs, need to, band together to try to get on the same page and teach our kids the same way, and stop looking at it as a business and more as, actual grassroots,
Yeah.
more as investing in these particular kids. Like the largest clubs are always business first. They're always about getting the best kids coming in each age group. Whereas like here at Cullman, we have what we have.
Yeah.
There's not tons of kids coming from other communities to play for us, and we fully and wholeheartedly invest in the kids that we have. And I think when you have some loyalty to your kids and you have a methodology that each of your kids follow, the growth is, like, far more rapid.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that. I would like to see also on, I guess on a professional scale, it's never going to happen, but I would love to see the MLS and the USL and all of them come together
Mm.
and get rid of the financial limitations on players and do a pro relegation type thing, which they're not going to do. I mean, I get it.
No.
They're not going to
No.
do, but it would be nice to see something like that.
Yeah.
At least be able to see a tiered structure
Yeah.
where
An
you
open
move
system.
up, an
Yeah.
open system, which
Yeah.
there's not that. And I don't think there ever will be that for at least the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I'll add, every 4 years, everybody gets excited and says, we've made such rapid improvement. But the last 3 World Cups we've been to, we had the same results. 1-1-1, lost the first round.
Wow.
We from a global scale, we haven't improved. We've done the same thing every single time. We look better doing it, look prettier doing it, but the success is the exact same.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the Wales game, everybody was excited about that game. And during at halftime, I was thinking, all you got to do is press USA. If you press USA, they're going to fumble. And then sure enough, Wales pressed us. And then boom, we completely lost all structure. So I don't know. I love U.S. men's national team. I love the USA. I always support them. But I think we have a very long way to go.
Yeah. And what do you think about on the women's side? What have you noticed compared to what you're seeing now? More investment on InGirl Soccer around the world that is just right in front of our eyes, right? You're seeing it with Sweden. I saw a friendly between Sweden and the U.S. national team. I think it was last year. It was just completely one-sided. Like it wasn't even fair, to be honest, what they were doing.
So
Right, tactically, technically, and then we're just seeing the rest of the world just, the soccer nations really coming together, similar to what you're saying, because they're all the federations and other countries, they all speak the same language.
Mm-hmm.
They have that language. Football nation has the same language. They can just implement that, from whatever program, whatever ages they want to start, and then it's on, it's on because they're doing that. So what do you see?
I see. The last Women's World Cup, I actually made a post and told everybody that I talked to that this would be the last World Cup we win. And we have over relied on our athleticism, our size, our speed on the women's side. And that has led us to the success we've had to today. And during the last World Cup, we had lost, I believe it was like U17 Olympics and U20 Olympics. We got demolished at the younger levels on the women's side. And all of our top players in the U.S. women's national team were getting older. So they're aging out. And our youth has been getting pummeled at that particular time. And as we get closer to the next Women's World Cup, you're starting to see the cracks in the foundation. And I truly believe that I still think we'll do well. And because there's not that many established women's countries. We'll still do well, but we're not going to win the whole thing. And I don't think we'll win one for a very long time until we get our stuff together. Yeah. And I think at the lower levels, well, for one, so I have 2 daughters and I'm a soccer fanatic, but I'll be honest, I don't really want my kids to want to play professional soccer because the average salary is $15,000.
Yeah.
So there's no future in it. I would love for them to play at the highest level, but until we get something that's sustainable where women can actually go and play at the professional level and make at least a living, then that's a big issue. Whereas overseas, the women's side, and you can actually make a decent amount of money doing it. Well, I think when you look at ECNL and DPL, it's all about getting the best athletes in the surrounding counties, putting them on the same team, showcasing them for college. They may practice once a week and then practice somewhere else. It's not about developing them as players. Like I know it. I have actually had some girls who I sent to some ECNL programs or higher level teams, and they'll win every game and they won't develop. for years. And it's all about just the accolades rather than developing the actual player. And it's been incredibly disappointing to see that. And I think we need to focus on that too, where the same thing I said before, we need a methodology. We need actual grassroots growth and emphasis on the younger ages. And of course, at the older ages, we need, more financial backing. And then also we need to let soccer be soccer. I know this is politically incorrect to say, but I think the politics are turning off a lot of people. I would rather just see, go support the women's national team and without all the news, constantly thrown in. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but yeah, I think it does turn away a lot of people to supporting. But
no, I appreciate you you giving your 2 cents on that, because I think it's important for everyone that is listening to hear different points of views and different ways of thinking and seeing the game, on the men's side, women's side, the youth side, on the girls and boys, because believe it or not, there's probably common themes that are happening throughout the nation. You're in Alabama, we're in Southern California, where I coach. I'm talking to people in Seattle. I'm talking to people in Utah. I'm talking to people in New York and Boston about this. And what I'm saying very, very similar things that you're saying, right? I'm hearing it, in that local community. This is happening. Very similar with what I hear in Alabama. This is happening, So at the end of the day, we can, like you're saying, we can easily form a super team, go and compete. But who's really losing are the players, because they're not receiving the actual education on a soccer point of view to be able to help them, right? And maybe the goal is to go and play college. They want to get seen, but what happens when they meet someone that actually has a foundation that is really good, and they go and they try to compete on that team because they're supposedly fast and strong, etc. But then you get somebody that actually knows how to play, and you have no chance against them, right? All you have, you just don't, or you come up against a team that just doesn't, that you can't compete against. So, I think the long-term goal is something that a lot of us, speaking generally, a lot of us miss, right? Because we want to win, we want to look good, I want to keep my job. If I don't win, I got the pressure of everyone else in the club giving me, BS if I don't win, right? So then I have to do whatever I need to do at the U9 age, U10 age, to just get this win, and you watch some of these games, just like, I can't even watch this game, right? Like this is really the elite level, right? This is what we call elite level, like we're saying. So interesting. So I know we just have a few minutes left, but I wanted to talk to you about the importance of the principles you're talking about, and the foundation for players, right? Because let's say we were talking about, and for those that don't know how important this is, or have never heard about what Jacob's been talking about, in order to play the positional play style, right, associative style, players need to have certain habits, like we're talking about, right? Because it's not fair to hold a player accountable for something they don't know how to do, right? If they don't have these habits. So in order to play specifically in this way, which means trying to position yourself to score a goal, right? To have the best position to advance the ball to eventually score goals, to create different type of superiorities, right? How important is the foundation that you're seeing now transitioning to, let's say now you learning because you're taking the APFC next course, how important is it for your players to understand that for you to implement the game model course now?
it's literally the most important thing.
Mhm.
It's impossible to take them to the next level without the foundational habits.
Mhm.
I mean, if you can't get someone that's consistently having their hips open to the field, then you can't play positional play.
Yeah.
So are you asking like what are the principles or like
No, the importance of having this, right? Because without this, how is it fair to hold somebody accountable for losing the ball where they're incorrectly positioning their body, right? Or they don't have the understanding of where to be positioned, right? Nobody's ever taught them how to position yourself between lines, what that means, what is between lines? What does it mean to even look for a pass that breaks lines, right? What does it mean to create, how to solve a 2v1, right? What does that even look like, right? So how important do you think it is for Soccer Nation and for clubs and coaches to hold these players accountable to this, without this foundation? Do you feel like it's not realistic?
No, I don't think it's completely realistic to teach that. I think that every single club should basically have like a little checklist. By U6 or U8, you want them to learn these principles, these
Mhm.
basic principles. U10, you want to add a few more principles. And then U13, you want to add a few more principles. I think that it's I think you see a lot of teams that are focusing more on shooting or doing a scissors or some particular type of move or a wall passes, some random concepts in a game they're important, but they're not even in the same realm
Mhm.
as the smaller little details, the foundational principles, such as just keeping your hips open to the field or playing the way you face. I think playing the way you face is one of those things that gets people very, very confused. Um, Playing the way you face to some people means you have to play where your hips are facing and you can't turn or whatever. You can't go from one side of the field to the other. Whereas if you're actually teaching it correctly and your hips are the correct shape, you can go from your center back to your striker because of the way your hips are shaped. Some people view it as your hips are facing the center back and you can only go back to the center back. But if you're teaching them to keep their hips open to the larger side of the field or where they want to go next, sure. I mean, you're changing direction, but it's not like a turn. It's not a blind turn or whatever. But I think that's what we're trying to do at U8. That's what we're trying to do at club. And like you mentioned, APFC next. If those, if my team did not have those foundational principles, such as head up or the hips open, receiving your back foot, they could not learn anything that's in APFC next, which
Yeah.
is higher level thinking.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I share those same thoughts again. It's very interesting to even have this type of conversation because again, the foundation is everything. Foundation's everything, but doesn't mean that you can't instill these quickly, right? One thing, do you add constraints maybe or rules to your training to speed up these habits, in the foundation phase? What do you do to help, instill these quicker, you could say?
I normally don't put constraints.
Okay.
I normally just create an activity that's going to bring it out
Okay.
and then continue teaching it that way. The only thing I've ever really said is I've never said you can only take 2 to 3 touches. I don't
Mhm.
believe you should restrict them on touches, but I will say try to play in 2 to 3 touches. Or for example, if I have a positional play activity, I may put some cones to show them, channels. I won't say, wingers have to be in this channel, but recognize where they are.
Yeah.
And they can visually see it on the field. Or my favorite thing would be in a 4v4+4 when I have my 2 center mids in the middle. I'll just put a cone in the middle
Yeah.
and say that visualize the 4 different grids. And wherever the ball is, make sure that your 2 center mids are not in the same square as the ball
Yeah.
and they're all automatically at a triangle. Just visually seeing that you automatically and make sure that you're always at a diagonal relationship. You can't be in 2
Well,
side by side grids.
yeah.
So that's how I try to do. I don't. So it's not constrained, just more of just encourage them to see the visual cues.
Yeah. So they're learning through identifying in game situations, right?
Correct.
That's smart. That's good. I like that. I like that. So wrapping up, obviously I want to end with just getting to know a little bit more about where we can find more information about you, your club, what you're doing. Where can people find you, or maybe just reach out to you in case some coaches or clubs want to know more about you and what you've done, and just ask you questions if that's okay. Where can people find you?
For me, the easiest way to find me, I mean, I am on Twitter. I think Jacob Brown DOC is the tag, but I am on Twitter. Our club is called Cullman United. The website is www.cullmanunited.org. So that's an easy way to find me. My email is on there as well. So that's two different ways you can contact me, and through our website you can see a lot of what it's about us. We have a Facebook page as well called the same thing. So, but yeah, those are two easy ways to do so.
All right, great. And any books you would recommend, or a book that maybe you have read or reading that you would recommend to any, whether it's a coach, parent, or player, whatever it is, anything in general that you would recommend?
As far as books, the two best books that I think I have read is one is like a total football book, but it's about Johan Cruyff's, life, and it gives you a different perspective on where he comes from and why he wants to play the way he played. Then the '70s Dutch team, and then it's a time at Barcelona, and the other one is called Messiah Method. Messiah College in Pennsylvania is actually the winningest program in the nation. And even if you're not religious, that's not necessarily a religious book. It's about how they create a culture within their college and they recruit specific types of players. And it's a really, really good book to kind of teach coaches on, developing that culture, that winning culture. So those two books are probably the best ones I would recommend.
All right, great. No, thanks for sharing that, man. And want to again thank you for making the time this morning out of your day and joining us. I think everyone that's watching, listening, I hope they received a lot of value. And maybe if they don't agree on everything, maybe they just make them think a little bit different about different ways of seeing the game, thinking about the game, thinking about development, what that means. And it's nice to finally obviously connect virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to connect soon, maybe at a convention or, coaching course or something. But again, Jacob, appreciate your time. Any last thoughts or advice for anybody out there?
Well, I think that what you just said, one of the questions you had told me about was a quote. And
Yeah,
what
go
you
ahead.
just said about making people think, the quote that I've had in my teaching and in soccer for the last 10 years is a Socrates quote. It says, "I can never teach anybody anything, but I can only make them think."
There you go.
So if you're challenging them, then it's
That's right.
more than merit. So
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Jacob. All
I
right.
appreciate it, man.
You have yourself a good one. Thank you again for coming on. Enjoy your course lesson today.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too.